Normally when we do talks at Soul City, we put all of the notes in the Soul City app so that you can follow along as you go. Today they aren't there, so if you're going to go and look for them, just save yourself the time. I'm gonna give you a heads up. They aren't there. They've never been there this week. They won't be there this week. It's not happening. And the reason is because if I'm honest, I prepared to talk about something else, and then I was with Emma last night, and I was like, I just don't feel like I should talk about that. I think I need to talk about something different, and so I am. So I'm going to talk about something a bit different to what I was planning today. So feel free to just take notes the normal way, in however way you want to do that. And I think it was interesting what Charlie was saying earlier about how she knew that she wanted community. She knew that she wanted to connect with people, and the path to get to community maybe wasn't quite the one that she would have wanted. She told me that she's only ever been camping, I think, do you say, where are you, Charlie? I can't see you. There. You say you've only been camping at Soul Survivor. That was your only experience. And you hated it, right? You absolutely hated it. And so the path for you to connect in community was to go and do something you hated. Sometimes you have a vision, you have a goal, you know where you want to get to, but the path to get there isn't the one that you would have wanted to take, right? That the actual journey isn't the one that you wanted to get to the destination. I was talking with some guys the other day about driving and speeding tickets. Just so that I know, hands up if you've ever had a speeding ticket. Okay, there's no judgment. I'm completely there. Have you ever done something that was the right thing to do with the right intentions and it just went completely wrong? Well, that's my story of the speeding ticket, really. I just started, in fact, I think I just got engaged with Emma. We were young, we were in love, it was beautiful.
Okay.
It's more beautiful now. I had disposable income back then. And I was like, she doesn't know me that well, so I'm going to woo her with a gift. Like, I'm going to make her kind of just feel really special. And it was our first anniversary of getting together. And so I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and get her like the most expensive purse that I can find in the whole of Guildford, because she deserves that, because I want her to really like me. And I only had like an hour to get to town and back before my next meeting, so I got in my car and I just drove as fast as the roads would allow me. And as I was driving, there was one of those movable police vans with, like, you know, the sneaky ones where they put the window at the back, and they took a photo of me, and they told me that I was doing 86 in a 50, which, in fairness, it was a dual carriageway 50, so it didn't feel like it should have been a 50. Don't judge me. I asked you first if you sped as well, so we're all in this together. And it said that if I'd have done 3 miles an hour faster, it would have been an automatic court appearance. And I was like, oh no, and it was a big fine. There was 6 points on my license, straight off the bat. I went from 0 to 6. I was like, yes, I'm winning. No, it was bad. And I was like, but I got Emma the purse, and she will love me now. And I gave her the purse. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, no, you're kidding. Like, Emma, this was really expensive. And she was like, how much? And I was like, it's like £100. She said, we're about to get married, you need to take it back. We need the money for the wedding. And I was like, oh no, not only did I get a speeding ticket, I got her the purse and she didn't even want the purse. Can I at least get an R? I've had no sympathy for like 12 years, no one's cared, and this has been something I've carried, this has been a burden of my soul. But there's moments when you have the right destination, or at least you think you do. You set your destination. You're like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to achieve. But then something about the journey doesn't go right. And last week we were talking about what is the change that you want to do with your life? What is the change that you want to see happen? We've all got a limited amount of time. And we set this homework that we were going to go away. We were going to speak with somebody. We were going to chat over this. And we wanted to set some things in place. We wanted to make a little bit of a plan about what we want to see happen with our lives. And I think that's beautiful, and I think that's brilliant, and we should be setting these kind of destinations. We should be setting these kinds of goals. But if you don't get the journey right, it won't matter at all. It'll be completely valueless. Just before I started this church, I met up with this young woman, and she was talking to me, and she was asking me about the church, and she said, I just want to give you one piece of advice. And I said, what's that? She said, my parents were church leaders as well. And she said, and I always felt like they loved the church and they didn't love me. And they valued the church, but they didn't value me. And the church got all of their time and their attention, and I didn't. And she said, so I've left the church, I've walked away because the story wasn't what I wanted for my life. And she said, I could just want to give you one piece of advice. If you build an amazing church and you lose your kids, it probably wasn't worth it. And I was like, that's so true. How often do we see people who have this amazing vision, amazing ideas that I'm gonna change the world, and then they lose their marriage, they lose their kids, they're going for it, they want to see God do incredible things, and then they fall apart, and they break, and they end up not really getting where they wanted to get to, because they had a great vision, they had a great destiny, they had a great idea, but the steps that happened along their life didn't get them there. And we've got a saying for this. We call this a counterfeit victory. When you get the victory you wanted to, but the method that you use to get there doesn't actually show the truth of the gospel. It doesn't actually show the truth or the spirit of what it was that you wanted to communicate throughout the whole thing. It's a counterfeit victory. And I think that this is a danger for us as we start dreaming dreams, as we start to say, I want to do something amazing with our life, is that we can set these in place and then we can take steps that actually speak a completely different story to the one that we want to speak with our lives. We can have counterfeit victories. In Proverbs it says that a man will set his vision, but that God will set the steps. It's good for us to have these visions, it's good for us to have these ideas, but we have to be careful of the steps that we take. It is God who will direct each of our steps. There's a thing that I think that lots of people talk about at the moment, and it's this idea of calling. What's your calling? What are you called to do? And it's actually a really new phrase. This is a phrase that we've only really used in the church for maybe 100 or so years. People didn't talk about your calling before that. And the word calling comes from the word vocation. What's your vocation? What is it that you're trying to see happen? And the word vocation actually comes from the word vox, which is Latin for voice, for vocals. And as we're talking about big life questions, what is it that you want to see happen in your life? What is it you want to do? Then I think that it's important that we recognize that the idea of calling is the same as voice, that your calling is your voice in the world. And the question that I really want to ask you today is, what is the voice that you have in life? What is it that people hear when they look at your life? And it's great if you say, hey, I want to do this, I want to achieve this, I want to stop world poverty, I want to make a change, I want to help people. But what you have to ask yourself is, what is the voice with which I'm speaking? And I believe that the voice that you speak is less about the doing and it's more about the being. It's less about the destination and it's more about the steps that you take trying to get there. That the voice that people will hear in your life is all about the way that you live out the journey. It's less about what you say, it's more about what you do. Does it make sense? Yeah. So I want to just read a passage which I think speaks into this, because so many of us, I think that our lives aren't speaking the sermon that we want them to. We want our lives to say something different, and some of us, I feel like maybe our lives, if we're honest, if we're reflecting, our lives are on mute. We're not really saying much of anything at all. And it's like people might look and they might just see a lot of activity, but there's no message. There's nothing that's really being spoken through. And I want to help us with this a little bit today. So if you've got a Bible, could you turn with me to Hebrews 12? Hebrews 12. And this is a letter I've been reading a lot in the New Testament. No one knows who wrote this. It was in the early church and it just got circulated a lot. And I've been reading this, and this has just really been speaking to me. And And what I want to give you today are really 3 thoughts which are going to help you to find your voice. 3 thoughts which are going to help you to have a clarity of voice, which I think is going to be helpful in your life. So if you've got Hebrews, then you can read along with me. It says this, Hebrews 12, verse 1. As for us, we have all these great witnesses who encircle us like clouds. In other words, he starts off by saying that your life isn't in a vacuum. Your life isn't private. Your life is public.
Yeah.
You know, that people see your life, what you do, the decisions you make, the way that you live it, the choices that you make are being witnessed by everybody around you. And so you need to be aware that whatever you do, whatever you say, whatever your life is speaking into is on public display. He says, we have this crowd of witnesses. So we must let go of every wound that has pierced us and the sin that we so easily fall into. And then we'll be able to run life's marathon race with passion and determination, for the path has already been marked out before us. You need to know that the moment you start standing for something, you're going to experience battles. The moment that you say, hey, I'm going to get to this destination, I'm not going to just wander through life, I'm going to make my life matter, that's going to be the very moment that you have a battle come, you have a storm come, you have opposition come. Because the moment you start standing for something will be the moment you come under attack. And this takes us by surprise. I think there's too many people who they're like, oh, do you know what? I just took a big step of faith and now everything is falling apart around me. I don't understand. You know, maybe last week you're like, do you know what? I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm going to give him my life. And then this week you've had the worst week of your life. That's because suddenly you're standing for something. Suddenly you've entered a fight. Suddenly your life has meaning. We have to recognize that the moment we start standing for something, we're going to come under attack. In fact, I think that it's one of the biggest indicators of your life, which is if your life has had no attack, then I think we should be reflecting and asking ourselves, well, am I still standing for something? Am I still pushing forward? Am I still actually trying to do something for the glory of God? Because you will only receive attack over something that really matters. You know, nobody guards a road that leads nowhere. It's going to be the hardest roads, the hardest battles, the hardest fights that are actually indicators that you're on the right path, not the wrong path.
Yeah.
And what the author says in this is that we are going to experience wounds. We're going to experience hurt. I don't need to know you to know that you've already experienced hurt. Every single one of us will. But what he says is that you need to let them go. You need to let it go. That wound that has hurt you, that battle that you have fought, that bruise that you've experienced, these things will stop you from speaking out with the voice that God has given you. You need to let it go. I don't know what this would be like for you. I think it looks really different for different people. It could be forgiveness. It could be that somebody has done something which has just completely rocked your world. It wasn't your fault. You didn't cause them to do it. You're completely innocent. And yet you're now holding on to this. And so they've forgotten about it. You know, they've walked on, they've left it behind, and you're still holding on, and it's still eating you up every single day. You need to let it go. And the reason why you need to let it go is because you need to have a different voice in this world. You need your life to say something more, and it won't for as long as you're holding on. Maybe it's fear. Fear, I think, is one of the biggest things that stops us from speaking out. You're afraid of what people think about you. You're afraid of what will happen if you take that step. You're afraid of not having enough money or not having enough resources. You're afraid of getting it wrong. You're afraid of being judged. You're afraid of being hurt. And I think that this is really reasonable. And as children, we walk through life without fear, and we love just exploring all the time as kids. And then what happens is one day you fall off the wall and you bruise your knee and you realize that there are things that will hurt you. And then you don't climb onto that wall quite as quickly the next time. Or maybe it was a vulnerable thing. I remember the first girl who I told her that I loved her, and she just ran away.
No.
And I was like, well, why won't you marry me? And she was 5, and she wanted to keep her options open. But it hurt. It hurt because I was like, I mean, I hadn't met Emma yet, but I was like, you might be the one. I don't know. You're the best I've met in my first 5 years. So I want to lock down my options. And she was like, no, I think that there could be somebody better ahead of you. And it hurt me. And actually, joking aside, that did hurt. And then I didn't tell the next girl who I loved at nursery that I loved her as well and that we should get married, because it burns and it hurts, and we start to slow down, we start to be more cautious. And these wounds, they hurt us. And we have to learn to let them go, or we will never be authentically ourselves. You know, we start to hide ourselves away. We start to put on fake appearances. We start to try and become something we were never made to be. And we need to let it go. I think there's some of us here who we don't even know who you are, because every time you come out, it's like you put on a mask. It's like you put on this face because you want us to love you. You want us to like you. You want us to accept you. And so you try to be something that you were never meant to be. And maybe today, what God is saying to you is you need to let go of that. You need to take that off. You need to start showing us who you really are, because God has given you a voice. And the world that you live in needs your voice. If you're here, you're a follower of Jesus, I believe that he's got a mission for you. That he's got a ministry for you. He's got a platform for you. And by platform, I don't mean a stage. I mean, we haven't actually got a stage. I don't mean that you have to have a microphone to have a voice. We've had this for too long. We've had this misunderstanding of ministry, this misunderstanding of calling, that it's all about getting a microphone, that you have to be an evangelist or a pastor to be called. That's not it at all. I think you can be called to be a dentist. I think you can be called to be a mum. I think you can be called to be a doctor. It's not about what you do. It's about the voice with which you do it. It's about what your life is pointing towards. I met a guy a little while ago, and he was a doctor. And he felt like he didn't want to be a doctor and just earn lots of money doing what he was doing, but that he wanted to use what he'd been given to change the world around him. And so he moved to Afghanistan. And he went to this village, and this village was a 2-day travel from the nearest city. If you wanted to visit him, it would take you 2 days traveling after you arrived in Afghanistan to get to his village. And he went to this village, and he found out that in this village, that 90% of children don't live beyond the age of 5. 90%. And he said, that's what I want to give my life to. I want to turn that upside down. And so he went out there, and at first he was just being a doctor, and he was just helping them. He was just bringing healing. He was bringing hope. And then he started to teach them the basic things that they could do to help turn it around. Things like sanitation and hygiene, and how they were looking after their kids and where they were raising them. And in 10 years, that stat went from 90% dying to 90% surviving. He turned it upside down. Now, if he'd have thought, you know what, to follow Jesus, I've got to become a pastor, like those children would never have had the life that God wanted them to have. So I don't know what God is calling you to do. And actually, I don't think it actually matters a lot of the time, half as much as we think it does. What I do know, though, is that God wants you to have the right steps on the journey that are going to shout about a God who is greater, a God who is love, a God who cares, a God who's going to lead people to step out of comfort, to step out of their situation, because they want to see this world transformed. But to do that, you've got to let some stuff go.
Yes, good man.
You've got to let go of some pain. You've got to let go of some judgment. You've got to let go of some hurt. You've got to let go of that voice that told you when you were younger that you would never be good enough, that you would never amount to anything, that you're not worthy, that you don't matter. That voice was not the voice of God. That voice was a liar, and you keep on listening to it again and again and again. You have to let it go.
Yeah, it's good, man.
We've got this really annoying thing at the moment outside my house. It literally drives me mad. I'm sorry, but I just don't understand people.
Right.
If you see somebody who's a person, I don't get them. Why do people do things the way that they do? Let me explain. So, every morning when we come out of our house, and we live on a terrace, open our gate, and somebody's dog has pooed outside my gate.
Sorry.
Pretty much, Do you have a dog? Pretty much every single day. And I'm like, I don't get it. Why would you just let your dog poo outside my house every single day? It's
gross.
just, it is so irresponsible. It is such bad. Jesus said, love your neighbor, right? Like, he was speaking to that person, I think, specifically with the context of that verse. Drives me mad. And the other day, I came out and I forgot to check.
Oh.
Yeah? I stepped in it.
Hey.
And I was like, oh. And so then it's like, I have to take my shoes off. I have to wipe them out, get up, go into the grass. You know, I'm doing that, rubbing them in the grass, trying to get it out. I then bring them back in the house. They're in the sink. I'm washing them. And it's taking time. It's taking effort. And it stinks. But I go through all of that effort because I don't want to stink like crap. Right? I don't want to go to work stinking like I've stepped in dog's muck. I don't want to get in my car and see dog's muck rubbed everywhere else.
Yeah, fair.
Do you know what? Some of us, we've stepped in dog's muck. We've stepped in it and it's all over us and it's horrible and we don't like it. But we have to shake it off. We have to let it go. We've got to clean ourselves off.
Yeah.
Because everyone else can smell it on you.
Yeah.
Everyone else sees it.
No.
And the worst thing is that when you revel in it, when you embrace the hurt, it starts rubbing off on other people as well.
Well.
That misery, that bad attitude, that pain, that frustration that was just yours originally, all of a sudden, your wife starts to speak with the same voice. All of a sudden, your kids are echoing back to you that same emotion, that same feeling. I tell you what, your life might be personal, but it's never private. You've got to let it go. You've got to have a better voice. And I want to warn you that sometimes letting go of hurt, sometimes letting go of pain, sometimes letting go of things, it takes some effort. It's not just let go. It's like sometimes you got to rub it a little bit in the grass, really get it off. You got to get a shower. You got to get some people around you. You might need to get some prayer. You might need to actually confess a little bit and say, do you know what? I'm struggling with this and I do need some help. You might need to spend a little bit more time in the Bible. You might need to actually pick up on your prayer life. You might need to start worshiping a little bit louder because you're going to have to do something to let it go.
Yeah.
But it matters because your voice in this world is needed and it matters.
Yeah. It's good.
First thing it says in Hebrews is let it go. And then continuing in verse 2. We look away from the natural realm. We fasten our gaze onto Jesus, who birthed faith within us and who leads us forward into faith's perfection. His example is this: because his heart was focused on the joy of knowing that you would be his, he endured the agony of the cross and conquered its humiliation, and now sits exalted at the right hand of the throne of God. So there's some mess that I think you need to let go of. But I think there's some good stuff you need to let go of as well. One of the things that I love doing when I get the opportunity is teaching people how to preach, teaching them how to communicate. I love it. It's one of my favorite things, and trying to give them some ideas, some structure, sometimes just trying to breathe a bit of confidence and courage into people. And something that I hear people say a lot is, you just need to share what's inside you. You just need to share what's on your heart. You need to share what you're feeling. And I think that that's the worst advice you could possibly give a preacher. You don't need what's in my heart. You need Jesus.
Yeah.
You hear me?
Good,
you don't need my emotions. You don't need what's inside of me except Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't need to give you a word from me today.
Yeah,
a word
good
from
man.
me isn't going to help you. It's just going to make you more like me. It's going to make you more dysfunctional.
Yeah.
What you need is a word from God. You need
Yeah.
a word from Jesus. And we get
Sure.
this mixed up.
It's good,
we
bro.
have this narrative in life which is just follow your dreams, follow your passions, and you're going to find your way. I beg to differ. Your passions will not lead you somewhere good. Your passions are fickle and they will let you down. If you only follow your passions, you're going to be manipulated.
Yeah.
Every time you go on Amazon, you'll be manipulated. Every time you go to the Apple store, you'll be manipulated because that's what they do. They show you your passion. They'll show you this amazing computer, and then they'll put like a really trendy guy with glasses next to it, and he'll have like a man bun, and I think, no, I need a man bun. And they'll say, if you get this computer, all the ladies will love you, or all the guys will love you, or if you have this, they'll take you seriously. And our passions allow us to be manipulated. And so we buy stuff we never wanted, we get stuff we didn't need, because we're following our passions. And how often are there things that I'm passionate for and are good and I love and I go forward into it, and then my emotions change? I'm going to be honest with you. I love my wife. Sometimes there's more passion, sometimes there's less passion. But I don't just walk away, because I'm not going to leave my life defined by my passion.
Yeah.
In fact, I want to do the opposite. I want to make decisions which dictate my passion. I've got this strange thing. I'm a Nottingham Forest fan. And I know half of you are like, I don't know who they are. They are the oldest football team in the nation, just so that you know, as of last week when Notts County got relegated. So we're now the oldest football club. And the story of why I'm a Forest fan is a bit weird, because if you know me, I'm not from Nottingham. I grew up down in Crawley. And really, I'm from Cornwall. I was born down in Redruth. And so, why would I support Nottingham Forest? Good question, I see you asking me with your eyes. And the reason is because I had no one else to support. So growing up in Cornwall, there was no City, United, and all my mates, they were like, I support Spurs because my uncle once walked past the stadium. And I was like, that's a rubbish reason. Somebody else would be like, oh yeah, my dad likes United, so I like United. I was like, Dad, who do you like? And he said, cricket. And I was like, that's not helping me. And I was like, well, I just need a reason to support someone, because I love football, and I feel like to really be into it, you've got to choose a side. And there's probably a sermon there as well, choose a side, different day. But I was like, I'm going to choose a team. And so I got, did anybody else when they were kids used to collect the stickers and put them in the albums, yeah? That was my thing. So I was like, the top sticker in my next packet, that'll be my club. Whoever it is, I don't care, that's my club. So I opened it up, pulled out Stuart Pearce. I've been a Forest fan ever since.
Whoa.
But the thing is about the story is, Forest aren't good. I mean, they are about the most painful club I could possibly have chosen to have followed. There's no glory. When Cole was a kid, when he was first born, I was like, Cole, you're going to be a Forest fan? I mean, he was just like, nah, he couldn't talk yet. But I was speaking over him, and he was a Forest fan. He went to school. First day he came back from school, he was singing City in the bin, United win. And he started saying he was a Man United fan. And do you know what? I let him go. I was like, I understand it's too painful to be a Forest fan. It is brutal. And I got to this point and I was like, do you know what? I've had enough. I'm not going to be a Forest fan anymore. I'm going to choose someone else. So I was like, who's looking good at the moment? Who is doing well? This is like back when United had Beckham and Scholes and they were just destroying it. I was like, I'm going to be a United fan because there's glory at United. I mean, not anymore, but there was. I was like, I'll be a United fan. And so I started watching their matches. And do you know what? I just couldn't care. I couldn't care. And what I realized is that you can make decisions in your life that will then determine where your heart lies in the future.
Wow.
You know, we get this so wrong so often. We think I just have to click with someone. I just have to meet them and fall in love and it's going to be electric and I'll stay with them forever. Actually, you need to make a decision that you are going to love them in thick or thin. You are going to be there even when you don't feel like it. That you're going to stay. You're going to keep on fighting. That you're not going to let them go. Because we don't need people who are going to be blown every single direction based on their passions, based on their desires. We have to have something deeper. I've been reading this story this week about John the Baptist. And there's this moment in his life. It's found in Matthew 11. And he is in prison in Jerusalem. And he sends out his disciples to Jesus. And he says to them, can you go and ask Jesus, is he really the one? Is Jesus really the Messiah? Can you go and ask him, is he the one? And so the disciples run to Jesus. And I was reading this and I was like, this is a weird story, right? This is a funny story because this is John the Baptist. This is the guy at the beginning of his story. He is in the Jordan River. He's baptizing people. He's the one who, when Jesus comes, his words are, "Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." He is the one who proclaims at the start that Jesus is the Messiah. And now, 11 chapters later, can you ask him, is he really the one? Like, what's happened in the middle with John?
Yeah.
Why has he got this crisis of faith? What's going on? And Jesus replies and says, well, tell him that the blind can see, the lame can walk. Tell him that people have been set free. And it sounds like he's trying to encourage him, doesn't it? Like he's saying, I'm doing all these amazing things. I'm doing these miracles. Look at everything that I'm doing. But the thing was, if you read the passage, what John says is he saw what Jesus was doing. And it caused him to question. This has been something I've been really just trying to work out this week a little bit. He saw Jesus doing amazing things and it caused him doubt. Anybody ever had a lack of faith because you saw too many people raised from the dead? Anyone else been like, oh, do you know, if I just see another blind person, I've had enough. If they see their sight one more time, if I see one more person saved on Sunday, I swear I'm never coming back. It doesn't make any sense. Why would Jesus be doing all these amazing things? And that would cause John to doubt. And I realized the thing with John is he's in prison. The thing with John is he's been faithful. He's given his life to God. And he's now in prison. And he knows that he's going to die. He knows that this journey for him doesn't end in that beautiful moment. It doesn't end in the song and the dance. That this journey is taking him to having his head on a platter served to the king. And he's looking at Jesus and he's like, well, Jesus is healing them. Jesus is helping them. Jesus is doing all of this amazing stuff for them. Like, what about me? And Jesus' words, he says, tell him, yeah, I'm doing all of this amazing stuff. I'm doing all these things. And he finishes by saying, he says, do not let the Son of Man cause you to lose faith, and there'll be a blessing for you. Wow. He basically says, John, you're right where you need to be. I'm not coming for you. I'm not going to save you from this. I'm not going to swoop in with chariots. I'm not going to send the troops. This is where you are meant to be. I think that so often we want Jesus to save us from our situations, but I believe that Jesus wants you to be saved from a life that's meaningless, from a life that doesn't matter, from a life that doesn't count. So many people, they say, you know what, there's nothing safer than the perfect will of God. I mean, I don't know how that worked for John.
Yeah, true.
We just finished Alpha and chatting to a couple of the guys from Alpha. One of them, he was living in Iran. And somebody shared him the truth of Jesus. And you know what he had to do? He had to flee for his life. He had to give up his career. He had to give up his jobs. He had to give up everything that he had so that he could follow Jesus. I mean, this wasn't, hey, do you know what? If you follow Jesus, you'll have life to the full. You're going to be having fun all the time. You're going to experience joy overflowing. No, this was, you're going to need to run. You might not have any money. You might not have a place to stay. This is going to be hard. You're going to be misunderstood. People are going to look at you funny. They're going to judge you. I mean, is that there's no safer place than the perfect will of God? Why would you make that decision? I tell you what, his life screams more about the truth of heaven than I believe mine does. Because his decisions are pointing to something bigger, something deeper. That there is a God who is a pioneer, who is a perfecter, who is going to make all things new.
Yeah.
And it might not always turn out how I want it to,
yeah.
but I know that God is working.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who have struggled believing in life after death. And I think it's because they've never experienced life before death.
Wow.
If you've never known life, well, of course you're not going to believe that you're going to live after you've died. But for people who have encountered God, their life should shout and scream that there is more. That the decisions that I make along this journey should be not just about this is going to make me happy, this is going to make me comfortable, this is going to bring me everything that I need right now, I need to be fulfilled, I need to have all of this stuff, I need the better car, I need the bigger house. No, I think that our lives, when they're truly in sync with what God is doing, they will say something far more profound. They'll say something far more meaningful. They'll say something far more impacting. In Hebrews, there's the list of fame. Men and women, heroes of the faith. And it talks about some of them who held on, who saw the promise, who raised the dead, who prayed and like the mouths of lions were shut. But then it goes on and it tells the story of people who prayed and the lions' mouths weren't shut. Who stepped out and it didn't work out how they expected it to. We read the story of people who prayed and the cancer didn't stop. And yet they held on to their faith. They kept on going. This is what Jesus said to John. He said, don't stop because this isn't the end. If you can hold on, there is blessing ahead of you. There is far more to come. So hold on. Keep going. One more step. Again. One more step. Again. One more step. Again. I cannot promise you that if you live the life that God wants you to live, that you're going to just have happiness every moment. I can't promise you that. I can promise you truth. I can promise you meaning. I can promise you purpose. Don't follow passions, follow purpose. Because purpose is what you were here for.
Yeah, it's good.
And purpose won't be comfortable.
Yeah.
Purpose won't be easy, but purpose will make a difference.
Yeah.
I believe that God is calling us to be people who have a voice. What if you knew your destination, but then you also stopped looking at everything around you to take your steps, and you began to focus your eyes on Jesus, the perfecter, the pioneer, the one who's always moving, the one who's always pushing forwards, the one who is always redeeming, he's always changing, he's always making things new. Daniel read earlier, Romans 8:28, when I'm in my hardest places, when I'm at rock bottom, when I want to just give up, when I don't feel like it anymore, when there's just been too much dog's mess in my life, this is the verse that I read. And it's a verse that's so easy to misunderstand. It's a verse that's so easy to not get right. It says, in all things I know that God uses everything for good. I mean, how do we read that for John, who's about to die? How do we read that for all the disciples as they laid down their life? Hey, do you know what, Peter? As you're being crucified, this is for good. And what I've come to realize is that I just see a fragment of this life.
Yeah.
I just see a little bit. I see some things around me. But I've come to believe that Jesus is working on my behalf all the time, whether I can see it or not, whether I can feel it or not, whether I know what's happening or not. I've come to believe that even if it never happens in my lifetime, that the dreams that God has given me will be fulfilled. I've come to believe that not just my highlights, but my lowlights will be used for God's glory. I've come to believe that the story of when the cancer is healed and the story of when it isn't will be used to help
Yeah.
somebody for the glory of God.
Amen.
I've come to believe that. I've come to believe that when I pray and I get provision and I can pay the bill that I needed to pay, that He will use that. I've come to believe that when I pray and He doesn't come through and I don't get that bill paid for and I get stuck and I struggle, that He will use that too.
Yeah.
Because I think that the voice that we need to have in this world is authentic. The world does not need a voice of perfect people. The world does not need the voice of people who see victory every single time, again and again and again. They need to hear the voice of people who are just real.
Yeah, come on, man.
They're just authentic and they're pointing at something beyond ourselves. And I need to know that God is going to use everything for good, whether I see it or whether I don't. I want to tell one more story. I was asked to share at not Boaz, it was Barnabas, homeless charity, a little while ago. And I prepared so hard, and because I was like, I want to make sure I get something right for these guys. And they said there'll probably be about 30 people who turn up. And so I was trying to get my head into what they would be experiencing. And I wrote this talk, and I had it for them. And I got there, and we started, and there was no one turned up. And I was like, oh, come on. I mean, I've worked hard. I've given myself to this. I've tried to make this work, and no one turned up. I was so angry. And then during the worship, one guy came, and he sat down at the back. And I was like, come on, God, I'm not preaching to one guy. What's this all about? And I was in such a foul mood, I'll be honest. And we got to my talk, and I was just like, look, I can't do this. This is awkward. And so I sat down, and I said, can we pray? Can we just pray? And we prayed, and at the end I was like, you know, how are you doing? And he said, oh, I needed that. I needed that peace. I said, why do you need peace? What's happening with you? And he said, I've just been told that I've got cancer. This was just before Christmas. This was in December. He said, the doctors told me I won't be alive at Christmas. It's all through my stomach. It's all through me. I'm riddled with it. And I was like, okay, that's bad. Like, can we pray for you? And he said, yeah, pray for me. We prayed for him. And he was like, thanks, great. Thank you. See you later. Have a good day. And I went home, and I was like, this just all felt wrong. Like I didn't get to do my amazing sermon that I thought I wanted to do. I didn't get to speak to lots of people. I prayed for a guy, and it was like, there was no buzz, there's no emotion. It was just prayed, thank you, see you later. And I said to God, like, what even is this? What was I doing here? And 2 weeks later, I got an email from the guy who heads up the charity. And he was like, you would not believe it. He said that the guy we prayed for, he said he came back. And he told us that the next day that he passed loads of blood and nasty stuff. And then he went to the doctors, and that the cancer has shrunk by 90%.
Whoa.
He said he's going to survive. He's not going to just see Christmas. He's going to keep on living. Like he now has hope.
Wow.
It's down to 10%.
Wow.
And he said now he's talking about suing the doctors. He says that they misdiagnosed him. And I was like, oh no, okay. Let's keep praying for him. And he said he doesn't believe in God. But he goes to all the guys living on the streets and says, you need to go to Barnabas. You need to get prayer, because when they pray, something happens.
Wow.
I went back about a month ago and was talking again, and I asked, how's this guy now? And they said he's 100% cancer free.
Oh, come on.
There is no cancer left.
Wow.
I'm like, that is amazing. But you know what it didn't come from? It didn't come from my strengths. It didn't come from my passion. It didn't come from my happy place. It didn't come when I felt like I was in my flow and everything was going right. It didn't come when I managed to get some points that alliterated and sounded really clever. And it didn't come from my happiness. It came because despite the situations, despite the emotions, despite the bad situation, despite the uncomfortable conversations that I didn't really even want to have, I made sure that I kept walking forwards, that I kept moving, that I kept doing what I knew Jesus was doing in that moment. You see, I don't care, if I'm honest, what job you do. I don't care what the situation is like at your work. I don't care if it's heaven or if it's hell. These things will pass. Your calling, your voice is what you choose to do, who you choose to be in the middle. That is what matters the most. Please stand with me. I've got two responses I want to quickly just walk you through. The first is for absolutely everybody. On your table you'll find one of these cards. If you just find one, pick it up, give it a little wave, just check the quality that you're happy with it. It is a good enough piece of paper for you. This is what we're originally going to be talking about today. And what I believe is that the voice that we speak with is not made in the moment, it's decided before the moment. You have to practice it, you have to try it, you have to get used to it. It doesn't just happen. I think a lot of the time, we end up in the fire and we expect to just pull something out in the moment. You need to, before you get there, practice. You need to make a pre-decision about what it is that you will do. And so what I want to ask you today is to think about 3 steps that are going to be practiced for you. One of them might be, do you know what, I'm going to let go of something. There's this person who hurt me. I'm going to write down, number 1, I'm going to phone that person. I'm going to repair that relationship. Or maybe there's a fear. Maybe you're afraid of failing. Maybe your thing is going to be, do you know what, I'm going to intentionally do stuff I know that I will fail at, so that failure doesn't define my life. Maybe it's that there's some messy situations that you know that you need to clean off. This is going to be about that. I want you to choose 3 things that you're going to put into place in your life over the next 10 weeks. One of them, something super easy. It's not going to take a lot for you to do this. Another one, I want it to be so difficult that you have no idea how you could possibly do it if God doesn't turn up. 3 things. I want you to write them down. And in 10 weeks, we're going to have a service here and we're going to share. We're going to share how we have failed, how we have succeeded, how we have grown, what we have seen God do in that time. We're going to share where we got it right. We're going to share where we got it wrong, because we don't judge that stuff. We recognize that failure is necessary on the journey to growth. And so we're going to write these things down. We're going to share them. We're going to do that in 10 weeks. That's your response. I want to ask you to do that. And just one more response, which is for anybody here who doesn't know God's voice at all. Maybe you're here and you're like, this is great, but I don't actually know Jesus. How can I fix my eyes on the pioneer and perfecter of faith if I don't know him? I mean, this has been completely different. I've always tried to live for my passions. I've always tried to live for my ambition. I've tried to live for my strength. And you're telling me that this is wrong. How do I do this if I don't know Jesus? The answer is you can't. None of this works if you don't know Jesus. It's as simple as that. And I just want to give you a moment. It's not a big moment, but it's a crucial moment. And it's a moment to say, I want to change something right now. I want to take a bit of a step of faith. I want to know Jesus. And this response is for anybody here who doesn't know Jesus. Either you've never known him, you've always been far, or maybe you used to know him. Maybe you grew up in a Christian home, but you've walked away and it's been time. It's been years maybe. And you know that there's something missing, and you know that it's wrong, and you know that you need to have a different voice. The only way that will change is if you know Jesus. So I'm just going to ask you, wherever you are, if you want to pray that, I'd love to pray that with you. I'm going to just count to 3, ask you to raise your hand so that I can know who I'm praying with. If you want to say, today I want to make a decision to follow Jesus, then just raise your hand with me on 3. Number 1, God loves you. He loves you just as you are, but he loves you too much to leave you as you are too. He sent Jesus to come and die for you so that you could know him again, so that you could be reconnected with God. 3, if you want to say today, I'd love to pray a prayer that says, I want to know this Jesus. I want to follow this Jesus. I want to change my voice. Just wherever you are, raise your hand with me right here in this place. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else who wants to pray that with me today? Okay, amazing. What I'd like to do is to pray this prayer. I'm just going to ask everyone to pray it with me. It goes like this. Lord God,
Lord God,
I'm sorry that I've turned away from you.
sorry that I turned away from you.
I'm sorry that my voice has been about myself.
Sorry that my voice has been about myself.
Today I want a new voice.
Today I want a new voice.
I want your voice.
I want your voice.
God, I believe in you.
God, I believe in you.
And I want to follow you
I want to follow you
in every
in
situation.
every situation.
In the good times,
Good times,
in the bad
the
times.
bad times.
Whatever it leads me to,
Whatever it leads me to,
even to death,
even to death,
I will follow you.
I'll follow you.
Amen.
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 Yeah.
Let's just give a round of applause to those people who prayed that. That is amazing. We're going to finish by just singing some praise.